add frankly, I've got I see a lot of veterans out there, and I'm sure that what I have to say this morning, you will relate to some of it. Even though I look around and I see, I think 95% of you are Army. For a sailor, it looks like I'm really all alone because this man served on ground with the Marines. But bear with me, Army people, and all the rest of you. This is the weekend that we take a moment to remember and honor all those men and women who throughout our history have served in the military services, protecting our freedoms. Many of them have died along the way, some in combat, accidents, and disease. Some were involved in big history-making events, and some were involved in small incidents that were known by no one except those who participated, but which helped to make the larger effort successful. No matter how they died, no matter how they served, they were doing their duty for all of us. So today, I'd like to take a few moments to particularly talk about one World War II incident that is rather close to my heart. This account was written by a Coast Guard sailor named Gene O'Brien. And every year, I take it and read it and take a moment to think about what happened. So I'll try to read it for you today. It takes place on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1944. And he writes, aboard the USS Emperador, PF number 28 patrol frigate, manned by U.S. Coast Guard crew in the North Atlantic Ocean. The mission of the ship was to hunt down German submarines, rescue sailors from torpedo convoy ships, and to take weather forecast information reported to the troops in Europe. He says, we are on watch on what's called the 8 to midnight watch. The ship is on war cruising watch, which means half the guns have to be manned at all times in all kinds of weather. The North Atlantic Ocean is in one of its typical lousy December moods. The waves swell mountain top. The ship is under the sea more than it's on. The wind howls through the superstructure constantly. The crew has just finished chopping ice in the superstructure to prevent the ship from capsizing. The ship stays out at sea for 2 weeks, then goes back for 1 week in some Newfoundland port for resupply and refueling. So it's a constant rotation throughout the year. 2 weeks at sea in this lousy winter North Atlantic weather. Thank God, he says, for the Great Lakes shipbuilders where this ship was made. The hull remained sound. Not one of the thousands of little wells split open. The shield around the 3-inch gun on the bow is laid flat by a giant wave. The rockets in the ready ammunition locker, filled with 24 anti-submarine rocket-propelled grenades, is torn from the deck and smashed up against the wheelhouse. 2 seamen have to have lifelines attached to them. They're lowered over the side, pick up one of the rockets one at a time, and throw them overboard, lest they explode on the ship. Lifelines are rigged from the wheelhouse back to the stern. is lucky. They can take shelter in the 20-millimeter gun clipping room, which is located forward and under the wheelhouse. But the 40-millimeter guns, and people in the tub watching those, have only the gun mount and the engine room exhaust vents to cling to. Everyone is soaked and frozen down. My station is to be the telephone talker and a lookout on the starboard 40-millimeter gun amidships. The ship is having a hard time keeping the bow into the sea. Only with the aid of the engines is the bow kept on heading into the sea. At one time, the wheelhouse actually takes green water to a forward porthole, which was not closed securely as it was thought to be. What a great surprise to the helmsman and the quartermaster on watch there. The officer of the deck, John Roberts, and the bridge talker are bounced around the flying bridge by the heavy seas. The port and starboard bridge lookouts are flung back and forth against the wheelhouse. Everyone has bruises and black eyes. This is the red badge of courage for Coast Guard PF sailors on this mission. This particular storm lasted for 7 days, solid. Each time the bow breaks from one of its plunges into the waves, it leaps up into the air and comes down with a resounding roar. The ship shudders from stem to stern. The galley is useless. You're not seasick, all you have is cold ice and red lead coffee. About the middle of the watch, somewhere around 8:30 civilian time, Lieutenant Robert Clare, the assistant first lieutenant, appears at my side and instructs me to accompany him to the bridge. We are relieving the helmsman and the bridge lookouts every hour because they just cannot function for a long time. I turn the phones over to my shipmate by the name of Raymond Knowles. He is from Plymouth, Massachusetts. My last words to him is this: Ray, don't leave the mount. Keep a tight life on. The seas are breaking over the main deck here. Lieutenant Clare and I wait for an opportunity, and on his signal, we make a mad dash to the right, along the light lines to the bridge ladder, up the side of the officer's wardroom, and to the next level, which is the wheelhouse. As we reach the top and get into the wheelhouse, a gigantic wave engulfs the ship from the smokestack right back to the stern. Lieutenant Clare remarked, "Thank God we made it. Another minute and you and I would be gone forever." I relieved the helmsman, and together with a first-class quartermaster by the name of Charles Pierstein from Boston, we try to keep the ship pointed in the right direction. I'm on the wheel and he's on the engine rudder telegraph. Just then I heard the bridge talker talking to the officer of the deck, and he said you cannot get a hold of the lookout midships on the starboard side. My heart skipped a beat. That was my friend and shipmate, Raymond Knowles, he was talking about. The boatswain of the watch had the lousy duty to try to go back and search to see if Ray was okay. He struggled back to the midship and came back to report. There was no sign of Raymond Knowles. He'd been carried overboard by that gigantic wave. His body had broken 2 cable life rails and ripped out the telephone cable. There was no thought of turning the ship around when man overboard called. There was a possibility that the ship could capsize or be engulfed by a wave. The safety of the ship was paramount. Days later, when the storm broke, we went back to search the area, and nothing was found. God spared the ship and its crew, and in true U.S. Coast Guard fashion, the mission was accomplished. ship suffered extensive damage to the weather decks. There was many a teary-eyed on the mess deck that night, and not all from salt water. Ray was our first casualty. He gave his life for his country, just the same as if it had been taken by an enemy's bullet. No ship or sailor will ever defeat the sea. That Christmas Day, and packed his sea bag would be shipped home to his family. Every Christmas at midnight mass, I remember this incident, and I remember Ray Knowles' smiling face, and I reflect, barefoot with the grace of God went on. Can you just imagine the Christmas message received that week by the Knowles family that said, "The Secretary of the Navy regrets to inform you," and so forth and so on. I said that struck kind of a chord with me, because not too many years ago, the Navy Memorial in Washington, D.C. asked all personnel who had served in the Navy, Coast Guard, Marines, or Merchant if they would write a memory of the service incident that happened to them. And so I wrote this, which appears on their website, Navy Law. All sailors who have been to sea can recount storms and stories of storms at sea and how they were affected by them. Here is a vivid memory of an experience that I had. At the war's end in 1945, my ship, the USS Modoc, a 240-foot Coast Guard cutter, was assigned to air-sea rescue duty, operating out of the U.S. Navy base at Argentia, Newfoundland. One dark and moonless night, we were at sea in an ugly North Atlantic storm. We were about 400 miles from land. I was off watch, decided to go up on the bridge to speak to my shipmate, Lieutenant Ken Gray, who was the officer of the deck. As I opened the portside hatch to go on the narrow deck, the ship rolled heavily to port. I was pitched across the deck. I hit the chain rail waist high, and I was going helplessly into the churning white-capped ocean. At that moment, it rolled the other way, throwing me right back into the hatchway. Grabbing onto the hatch door and soaking wet, I dogged it closed. Sitting on the metal grating inside, I began to shake and shiver from the cold water so close, and the realization of how close I had come to being a lost at sea statistic. Needless to say, as an engineering officer, I stayed below by the boilers as much as possible. This is a frightening, miraculous moment that is still with me after all these years. So, as I say, every year I take time to read this around the Memorial Day and account my King O'Brien. And remember Ray Knowles and those like him. God took Raymond that night, and for some reason, I know it's God, He didn't take me. And I've been fortunate to live for 91 years, and I thank God for that, and I appreciate the time I've had with all of you and with my family.